Hey folks, I'm Theo Shaft and welcome back to Twisted News, where we dissect the news so you don't have to. And this week, we've got a doozy. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the world of international intrigue, botched coups, and two American fellas who make the Three Stooges look like masterminds. Before we get started, remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our latest shenanigans. Now picture this, the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation rich in resources and political turmoil. Enter our protagonists, a father-son duo from their home in Utah who decided they were just the right people to, well, overthrow the government. Why? Honestly, we're not entirely sure. Maybe they were bored? Maybe they watched one too many episodes of 24? Whatever the reason, their plan was about as well thought out as a toddler trying to build a skyscraper out of Lego. This was not your typical cloak and dagger operation. No, this was more Dumb and Dumber meets Mission Improbable. And trust me, the only thing improbable here was their chance of success. So, grab your popcorn, folks, because this story has everything. Bad decisions, hilarious mishaps, and a healthy dose of what were they thinking. Stay tuned, because this is one for the history books, or maybe the comedy books. According to reports, the duo's plan involved recruiting mercenaries and acquiring weapons, but they were woefully unprepared and outmatched. Their ill-fated adventure ended with their arrest by Congolese authorities, making headlines around the world for all the wrong reasons. Our Utah men, let's call them Bob and Bobby Jr., decided their first step was to rally the troops. Their army? A ragtag group of locals they'd promised riches and power. Now, we're not sure what they offered these folks, but it couldn't have been much. Maybe a lifetime supply of discount coupons? A timeshare in Jacksonville? We may never know. Next up, weaponry. Forget tanks and missiles, these guys went for the bargain bin approach. We're talking rusty machetes, homemade explosives that probably wouldn't scare a squirrel. And oh yeah, a couple of slingshots. You know, for those long-range attacks. Their grand strategy, walk into the capital, Kinshasa, and just take over. I mean, how hard could it be, right? They probably figured the government would just roll over and hand them the keys. Like a valet at a fancy hotel. Spoiler alert, it didn't quite go down like that. According to news reports, their so-called army quickly disbanded, and they were captured by local authorities within hours. So, Bob and Bobby Jr., with their motley crew and questionable arsenal, set off for Kinshasa, hoping to overthrow the government. Now, imagine this. A bunch of guys, sweating profusely in ill-fitting camo gear, marching through the jungle, tripping over vines and arguing over who ate the last bag of chips. Not exactly the picture of military precision. Reports indicated they were ill-prepared and lacked proper training. To make matters worse, their navigation skills were, shall we say, lacking. According to sources, they didn't even have a reliable map. They ended up going in circles, getting lost in the jungle, and at one point, even stumbled into a wildlife preserve. Let's just say the monkeys weren't impressed. Eyewitnesses reported seeing the group being mocked by the local wildlife. Their army started deserting faster than a politician's promises during election season. News articles mentioned that morale was at an all-time low. By the time they limped into the outskirts of Kinshasa, they were down to a handful of disgruntled locals, and a very sunburned Bobby Jr. reports confirmed that their numbers had dwindled significantly. Remember that grand takeover? Yeah, that didn't happen. Bob and Bobby Jr., looking more like lost tourists than revolutionaries, wandered into the capital where Bob was shot dead, while Bobby Jr. was promptly arrested. We're not talking a SWAT team takedown here. More like a couple of bored policemen wondering why two sweaty guys in mismatched camo were trying to buy a map from a street vendor. The interrogation was probably the highlight of this whole debacle. I imagine it went something like this. So, you were planning a coup? Yeah, you see, we were gonna... with slingshots and firecrackers, well, we also had some strong words prepared. The Congolese authorities, initially bewildered, eventually realized they had stumbled upon a comedy goldmine. News articles later revealed that the duo had no real plan, no local support, and no understanding of the political landscape. International coverage mocked the amateurish attempt, highlighting the absurdity of their so-called coup. Headlines read, "Tourists arrested in Congo for laughable coup attempt," cementing their place in the annals of failed revolutions. So, what did we learn today? Well, for starters, planning a coup takes a bit more than a couple of slingshots, some firecrackers, and a whole lot of misplaced confidence. Also, maybe leave international relations to the professionals. The US duo, who were former military personnel, clearly underestimated the complexities involved. And if you're thinking of overthrowing a government, at least invest in a decent GPS. Their lack of proper navigation tools led to their capture. This whole saga was a hilarious reminder that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. The duo's plan was foiled almost immediately upon arrival, and that even in the world of international politics, there's always room for a good chuckle. Their amateurish attempt became a laughingstock in diplomatic circles. Just remember, folks, don't try this at home. The consequences can be dire, as seen with their subsequent arrest and trial, unless you're really, really bad at it. Their failure was so spectacular, it almost seemed like a poorly executed magic trick. Then it might just make for a great story on Twisted News. I am Theo Shaft, and thank you for watching.